So I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past a mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life. My life's just fine. And I think if you know the rhythm, you know how the MJB classic goes, the anthem, just fine. And I chose that song. I chose that as the title of this episode because that's Leeta. My guest is Leeta Harlem, childhood friend. She's just fine. I did not want this episode to be focused on any childhood trauma or really awful things that happened to her or any person. I wanted it to be more about who she is now and how she's taken whatever those things were in her past and used them to her advantage. She's taken whatever came her way that was fair, whatever came her way that wasn't fair, whatever came her way that she decided, whatever came her way that she looks back and goes, that probably wasn't the best decision, whatever. And what she's turned that into. I still call her Leeta, but many people, when I'm around her, when they see her, they call her Big Sis Leet. So she has a whole, this impact on people that's beyond, when I met her as just a 15-year-old. But I think you'll like this episode because you can relate to it if you are human. If you're human, the human experience as it stands right now is imperfect. So if you're an imperfect person and you want to learn or see how you can take your imperfections and turn them into benefits for those around you, you'll like this episode. And just for Leeta, I wore this t-shirt here. This t-shirt, you're, to a novice, you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, Superman. Okay. But if you're a true comic book fan, which I am, and I know that no matter what I say from this point forward, if anyone who's watching comics reads this or sees this video, they'll still critique this, but I'm going to tell the story as I know it. This symbol is not the Superman symbol. It is the symbol for Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin. There's a lot of different renditions about her history and her past, but that's what we're going with on this episode. And the point of it is not that she's Supergirl, but she's that to a lot of people. Her story inspires a lot of people so that for them, she's Kara Zor-El. She's Supergirl. And hopefully by watching this episode, you'll see the Kara Zor-El or the Clark Kent or whoever that superhero is for you. For me, it's Peter Parker, Spider-Man. But you'll see that in you. And you'll be able to turn your inner superhero to help others. If you grab that out of this episode, then you got the point of it. Because that's what Leeta's about. She's about making her story help you, taking her story to help you. So enjoy. And again, thank you for being with us here on In Your Atmosphere as we're now at episode 4. And it's been a good journey so far. But this one, like I say on all of them, it's going to be a great one. So enjoy it. Thank you, Leeta Harlem. And thank you for watching another episode of In Your Atmosphere. Each of us has a figurative atmosphere. Those individuals we choose to spend our time with. But we need to ask ourselves, are those people willing to celebrate with us on our best day and stand with us on our worst day? Have they provided you with life lessons that can serve as a protection for you? My atmosphere is full of those whom I choose to surround myself with because they make me a better person. My name is Donovan Woods, and the purpose of this podcast is to shine light on some of their stories. I've personally either overcome challenges or I'm continuing to endure based on what I've learned from each and every one of them. Welcome to In Your Atmosphere. So what is going on, Miss Leeta? How are you?
I am doing well. Excited to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you are very busy. You are very famous. And I know you have a lot of obligations and you made time for me. I appreciate it. We're recording this late on an evening on a weekend. And It means a lot. Let me give the audience a little context as to who you are. I met Leeta in 1992, summer of 92, when I moved to the same town with her and her childhood best friend, Shelly, my wife. So one of the things I know about Leeta, she helped my wife to find some soul, to be able to dance, to not be the nerdy girl she was prior to me meeting her. So had I met that version of my wife, probably not attracted, probably don't hook up. So thank you, Leeta. You secured my marriage. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate you saving my wife. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
That's part of what you did. But let me give the audience the rest of it that you've done since that time. I think this one write-up is perfect. It kind of gives everyone the depth of why I wanted to have you in this series in your atmosphere, my little podcast series of people who've really just made me a better person. And again, it's not that I have to be best friends with each the individuals that are on this podcast series. Not that I have to talk to them once a year or even once every 2-3 years. It's that when we have had interactions, I'm always better for it. Mm-hmm. When I see these people and what they do to other people in their interactions, they're better for it. So it's just, I'm happy to kind of shine some light on the people that I think are just make what could be a terrible life in this life we live in now. They make it better for those they interact with. So you're definitely on that very, very short list of people that I personally know. So, Leeta is an author, event coordinator, motivational speaker, women's group facilitator for domestic violence, television producer, host, CEO, and founder of her own companies entitled Big Sis and Company and Keep the Box LLC. She's received training in crisis counseling, group counseling, psychology, and domestic violence counseling. I could go on and on and on, but what I really wanted to talk about specifically with you, Leeta, for any listener that's listening, is the how. Not so much the why, but the how, because I've known you long enough. I don't know everything by any means, but I've known you long enough to know there's been phases, and who you are today wasn't who you were in 92, right?
Right.
But how did you take your life experiences and actually turn it into something that's helping other people? Because just the little things I know, the little things, I don't know a lot. It should have eaten you up. You shouldn't be here. Yeah. Psychologically, emotionally, even caring about other people. But yet somehow you flipped it. How did you do that? And we can kind of take it bit by bit, but how did you get down that path, Leeta?
Wow. And, I think this is probably one of the first times someone has actually asked me the how. And I certainly appreciate that question, but I have to say that it's very connected to the why. And when I say that, I mean that for me, coming from a family of just strong women and coming from a single parent household where my mom just set that example of you don't give up. When I wrote my first book, which was about my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt, I asked each one of them, what was your rock bottom? And each one of them stated there was no rock bottom. They never had a mindset as this is rock bottom or this is the lowest that I could possibly get. And we're talking about people who have been survivors of abuse, single parents, locked up. I mean, they've had all different types of experiences, but for them, it was never an instance that, okay, this is it. I can't do anymore. They always felt like I have to push forward and I have to set an example for whomever is behind me. So that really just laid that foundation for me that through those times, as you mentioned, some very dark, down times, where I feel like I've hit rock bottom. But for me, it was always that legacy that, no, you really haven't. And not only are you not completely at the bottom, but you have a responsibility to help those who follow you to know that there is no rock bottom. So that's really what's kept me going and kept me not just surviving those things, but actually thriving and then turning around and helping others.
Now, I know, your faith, we share the same faith, right? But sometimes you can have faith in God. And I think if I asked anyone who was not only one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but of anyone that's has a relationship with God, they would say that part, God, that's solid. Yes. Who he is represents the creation. Everything we see, that has never changed. But it can be the people, whether associated with an organization or just ourselves and our own imperfections, that can take us away from him. And not to get overly religious in this discussion, but how in the world did you not just become bitter? And I know you, and I know every time I've been around you, publicly you're smiling, people call you big sis and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird when I see it, 'cause I don't see you often, but when I do, I hear people refer to you that way. I'm like, Leeta, really? That's just Leeta. What you? But I mean, you've had that impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
How did you not let the bitterness part get you? Forget the foundation part. Forget hitting rock bottom. How did the bitterness not get to you, to defeat you?
And, you know, everyone knows I'm very transparent, and I have to answer that by saying it did get me. There have been times in my life where I did allow the bitterness and the disappointment in people to affect my faith, my viewpoint, my belief, even in people. So it has gotten me at times. And I think that's why I have such a great platform and a great perspective, because, you know, I'm not fluff, you know, I'm not coming from a place of saying, oh, you're going to be fine. It's going to, you know, you're never going to lose faith and lose sight. Like you said, you know, we are very religious, and we have an appreciation and respect and love for God and his arrangement. But we also are very human, and there are some situations in life that can strip you down to the point where temporarily you do allow bitterness, you do allow resentment, and you can lose your way. And I have lost my way before. And again, I think it's just important to say that I always knew, even in that lost state, that I wasn't truly completely lost. And I always had a reason to keep fighting to get my way back. And part of that was my faith, but also because I've always felt a responsibility to other people, and to myself, you know. And so that pushed me not to allow myself to stay in that space of bitterness and resentment and being lost.
So I teased you, one, that's a beautiful answer. I don't want to move too far away from it. I'm coming back to it, but I teased you about teaching my wife how to dance and to remember her heritage. But that's a part of you, just kind of seeing a need, as it were, whether it's something minute, you know, something silly like that, or something that's serious. Does it ever get old? Like I think about you now, just when I started seeing how people responded to you in the last decade or so, because we live in two different cities. You're male, I'm female, you're married, I'm married. So it's not like we're talking all the time. Right. But when I would come across you or people who knew you, it was as if they were talking about a different person. I'm like, Leeta, like, man, so you've had this impact. And the only thing I can compare it to for people who don't know you is something like Olivia from Law and Order SVU, Mariska Hargitay's character. Shelley and I are huge fans. We have seen every episode. And I think about her role when it became like a character, and she kind of took it even outside of the television show and became like a spokesman for whether it's domestic abuse or whatever the case may be. How have you allowed it, when you're reflecting and talking to someone else about probably dark times for you, does it bring you down when you're encouraging someone else to have to tap into what happened to you or what you experienced?
Not anymore. And I love that you bring that up, because when I first started this journey, right after my divorce, and I was kind of in the beginning of my journey of helping other people and just making awareness of certain things, I found that I did get to a point where, because I was just constantly dealing with certain things, I was constantly talking about toxic relationships and depression and things like that, that I was not quite healing the way that I needed to heal. And most importantly, spiritually. And so I stepped away for a while from all of it. I had a TV show and all of that. And I said, I need to make sure that I'm okay spiritually. That's the foundation. And then I can see where there's room to continue to help other people. So because I did, which was one of the best things that I could have done, and it was about 10 years that I was able to really work on myself, ground myself spiritually. So now when I do help other people, when I do impact others and do these presentations or whatever form or platform that it's on, I'm grounded. I'm grounded spiritually. And it also helps me to choose how much to actually give. You know, I don't put out there a consistent person that is about speaking about domestic violence awareness anymore. That I had that phase where that was like the number one thing that I wanted the community to be aware of. Now it's just a part of the various things that I help women to feel honored, empowered, and refreshed. It's a piece of it. But I know for my own mental health, I can't make that the sole thing that I'm constantly focused on, because as a human, if you keep digging at certain things, just like any wound, it of course can open. So for me, I think just taking that time and spiritually grounding myself helps me to be able to give exactly what's needed to other people and still not lose myself.
So I guess a quicker way to say that, to make sure I got that, you cannot help anyone else until you help yourself first.
That's it.
Is that fair?
That's exactly it.
But at the same time, the danger is, I'm assuming, because I'm thinking from my own experience, and maybe you can, give me yours, or is it also easier to help other people and their problems than it is to face your own problems?
I would say so in a certain context. And that's actually one of the things that when I coach people, I talk about, because I find a lot of the women who I work with are givers, and they pour themselves into helping other people. And believe it or not, that can become very an escapism technique, actually. Yep. To your point, it's easy to start focusing on helping other people, especially when you're good at it, and you're helping other people and you get a measure of validation from knowing you're helping someone better their life. And it can, if you're not working on yourself, if you're not taking that time for yourself, it can become your crutch. It can become a way to escape what's really going on inside. So I can't stress enough the importance of making sure you are okay first. And whatever, I tell people I will be in therapy for life.
Same.
Most likely because of some of the things that I've gone through. But that's my way to keep connected to something that's going to help me stay grounded and stay okay.
And I know that's a great answer. And I know, and I say it's a great answer because there are people who are going to hear this, the millions who are listening to this podcast. But if it's just one person that hears that, because a lot of us, especially those who have a relationship with God, we are givers. That's like the thing we do is give, whether it's witnessing to other people or talking about, we're trying to give. And I think there needs to be a reminder of the balance. And that's what God or any mature person would want from you also, is to balance it, because you can give to the point, as you said, of exhaustion. And I think that can even lead back to the bitterness and resentment if the people you're giving to don't reciprocate or listen. So I guess there's got to be a measure of, I'm going to give you some, but I'm going to, temper it with seeing how you actually, what you take from it. Was that ever a thing for you where you had to learn, not so much not to give everyone the same amount every time, but where you had to balance how you were receiving the benefits of giving,
right?
But it wasn't based on how that person responded to what you were giving them. Did you have to learn how to do that?
I did. And I think one of the things that helped me is when I made giving my resources something professional. Because when I wrote my book, I Can Fix Mine, and when I started my coaching program, there's something about people making that investment that does disconnect you emotionally, to a certain extent. It's like you've invested in this to the extent that you do the work and you apply the different principles that I'm sharing that have worked for me, is the extent that you'll grow and you'll heal and you'll do what you need to do. Yeah. So for me, that helped immensely, taking the emotional, when it's a friend or someone you care about, you can feel like, oh, why are they not listening? Like, why do you keep putting yourself in this situation? Or why do you keep going through this? Yeah. But as a professional, it's really business at the end of the day. And so that's what helped me to be able to make that disconnect. I'm still there for my friends, but at the end of the day, I think most people know to really get that part of what they can get from me, it does become professional, and that helps keep it where it needs to be.
And I think, and I'll speak from an experience in terms of when you volunteer in a religious group, I think you have a broader group of friends from a lot different places that you may not have had if you all have the same beliefs, right?
Right.
It can be a danger when you involve business with that, because, and this is any religion, this is any group, anybody, or even just friends and family saying, hey, could you do that for me for free, or at a discount, or this? How have you learned to value what's here, to value your experiences? I mentioned some of the trainings you've had. How have you learned to truly value what you have to offer?
Mm-hmm. honestly, I think it kind of took me by surprise. I've always known that my story and me sharing my story and being transparent would help other people. And so I applied that measure of value on it. But when I really think when I wrote my book and the impact that the book had, and when people started like, how can I sign up? I need to buy books for schools. I've had people order books for schools, like guidance counselors order it for schools.
Nice.
And yeah, and people ask me about how can I get, on your coaching program. That was when I really saw the value that people are willing to make an actual investment in what I have to offer. And that was it for me. That was when I saw that, I was, okay, great. We will continue from there, and that's been the thing.
And I don't want to put your personal relationship out there with your husband, but is that important? Like, what role does he, because I know, let's say if you're volunteering, let's say in a congregation role, whether you're the man in the relationship, the woman's going to have some part of that, even though she's not recognized with certain titles, she plays a role with that. Is it the same thing with what you do specifically professionally, that he has to be a part of this journey with you?
That's very interesting and kind of layered, because what has worked for us, so those that know my husband and know me know that we're very opposite. He's very much a introvert, kind of laid back type of guy, has a select group of people that he likes to be around. Other than that, limited time only type thing. Whereas I'm very extroverted most days and, I just do a lot in the community and all of that. What we have found that has worked for us is we try very much to kind of keep those things separate. The things that he enjoys, the things he enjoys are his things. The things I enjoy and that I do for the community and all of that are my things. Where we have combined them, as I made things more professional and brought it into as a business, then that impacted, of course, the marriage, right? Because you're talking about from a financial aspect, you're talking about time and do I continue to work full time? And so that aspect, we've had to kind of come together to talk about, and he's been extremely supportive. He's definitely more of a technical eye than me. Like, he has that technical vision. So there's times when, even when I'm writing my books, I may get him to just give me feedback. Like, is this coming off too wordy? Is this coming off too feelings? And he will read and edit. Those of you who read the first book, Celebrating a Legacy of Courage and Resolve, he wrote the foreword for that. And I started getting a little salty because I was getting more feedback on the foreword. It's like people were stopping, like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't even read the book. Carlos wrote that." Okay, y'all gonna read the book though? Nice. So we have found a nice rhythm of working together, but still honoring each other's personality and personal interest, and being very intentional and being very careful not to try to cross over, but allow each other to have that individualism.
So I wanted to say this, and I've never said it to you publicly because we've just never had a chance to, and I'll say it here because I think it fits, and I don't think it's sharing too much. Like I said, I've known you since I was 15. I don't know Carlos that well, but I don't have to. It's the weirdest thing. I had more interactions in your first marriage, and I know for a fact, if you counted up minute by minute, I spent more time in your first marriage, right?
Right.
And just in the probably 15 total minutes of real true interaction, conversation, not just being at the same gathering or party, but really truly 15 total minutes of speaking with him.
Right.
You did good. Not many people have a second chance, and they choose wisely, as you know. And we have friends like this. We have family like this. Sometimes it's just a pattern. It's just who you attract. It's just what happens. And I'm not bashing anyone like that. That's just I won't even call it a flaw. It's just they love the wrong person, right? You, bless you. You were so blessed to have found him, but at the same time, he's blessed to have found you, because yes, I see that the more quiet, reserved personality in him, but it's a perfect fit for you. Yeah. It's just, it's almost like if I were someone on the outside and I read your books and I, saw how people, big sis lead, oh, I love you. Oh, like if I saw that, public persona of you, I wouldn't know who would fit. but he fits perfect because he doesn't need that. He doesn't need the acknowledgement. He doesn't need the shine. He doesn't need anything, but yet he seems to be a place where you can, like, I don't even know him that well, but I can just read it enough to know that when you go home, he keeps you balanced.
Yes.
Because I'm sure, I mean, just as a human, I'm thinking if you give a public speech, let's say at a congregation or at work, people are like, oh, good job. It can get to you. I know it can. So if you're getting all this positive feedback from women and groups and schools and counselors and psychologists and it can probably be here. Even if you're trying, you're the best person, but you marry the right person that can kind of just nicely, quietly, that's not why he's into you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need that from me. And I kind of can bring you back here.
Yeah. I thank you for acknowledging that, and you're spot on. And, like you said, that not to be overly religious and all that, but it is a part of who we are, spirituality. And what I encourage people when I talk about that aspect, during that time when I just took time to myself to heal and get grounded spiritually, I went through many stages of whether or not I would ever be in a relationship again and making wrong choices and all of that. And when I got to a certain point, my prayer was that I would find someone who loved me because of my love for God and because of my relationship for him, and who would be able to see me as close as any human could in the way that God sees me. And that was my consistent prayer. And when I met Carlos, that's exactly what I got. I got someone who, to your point, if not, I could give a million speeches, write a million books. He's going to be happy and support that. But what really is the crux of our relationship is he loves me because of my relationship with God. And early on in the marriage, I asked him, like, why do you love me? And, sometimes as women, we're looking for, like, we want the whole, because you're the most beautiful woman I've ever met. And my husband was like, well, it's because you love God more than you love me. And I remember thinking, like, that ain't the answer I wanted. But when you think about how important and positive and just how powerful that statement is, and I realized then my prayer had been answered. And so that's why I really appreciate you acknowledging the relationship, because that's exactly what I needed, especially because of what I had gone through early on.
And let me say this too, for anyone else listening. It's not that, because and Leeta, I'm looking to you to help edit however I say this the right way. I think for some reason you've always known me better than I know myself. Even though, again, you were close friends with Shelly, you're that kind of person. I'm just never going to call you Big Sis Leeta. That's just Leeta. What are you talking about, man? But but tell me, help me break this down. It's not that, because I don't want to poo-poo your first choice, your first marriage. That's not my place.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a place of other people to look down on anyone else's selection of their marriage mate. Marriage is an honorable decision. Marriage is something you go into it with good intentions. So I'm not, and I wasn't there with you every day. Right. I know what I think I know, but I wasn't there with you every day. And that's for any marriage. So to those who have been through a rough period in terms of a marriage, or let's say an engagement or a dating situation where it just scarred them. Yeah. How do you not put the blame? I'm going to wrap it up with this. I'm going to kind of wind it down a little bit, but how do you not, the other person, the people on the outside, how do you not blame that person for picking the wrong people? And I think I even said that earlier, because I think remembering when you were dating back then, you were still Leeta, you were still kind, sweet, and smiling and laughing and positive. But how do you help someone to see you're not bad for picking someone that didn't work out?
Yeah. That is one of the biggest aspects of healing from any type of, like you said, breakup, relationship ending, anything of that nature. You do tend to blame yourself, and outsiders will make decisions, on what they think happened and all of that. One of the biggest things, and I talk about this all the time, I truly believe my healing was prolonged because I spent so much time trying to prove to others what was right, what was wrong, what really happened, what didn't happen. And that prolonged my own healing. So my biggest advice is you don't have to prove it to anybody. All you have to do is take from the situation how you can make different decisions later. And that's really it. And you notice I said different because, it's not about saying this is better or worse. like you said, we make decisions based on who we are and where we are in that moment. One of the things
Yes.
I tell all the women that I coach, which I actually got from my therapist, was, does a toddler look back and kick itself for not learning to walk sooner in life? No,
That
we
is
laugh at that,
beautiful. That
right?
is good. That is
Right?
so good.
It's like, of course not. But when we get older and we become adults, we tend to put judgment on choices that we made when maybe we didn't know better, we didn't have different tools, resources, circumstances, whatever the case. But let's remove the judgment and let's heal, let's honor where we were and the choices we made at that point in life. And let's choose differently. Let's make choices and surround ourselves with people and relationships that fit who we are now and feel good about that. And that's really the best advice I can give.
Okay, Big Sicily. I see you. You took me back to the 90s neo soul, going up to the BET soundstage or something, listen to some Def Jam poetry. I don't know what that was, but okay. I can't end it any better. I couldn't even stop myself. I wanted to, but I'm going to have to edit that. I don't know what I'm going to do. But that was powerful because I have nothing else to add to it.
Yeah.
That was perfect because I really wondered how to say that, how to say, man, it's an honorable thing to want to get married.
Yeah.
To say, I'm going to be honorable and faithful to this person. That's not a bad thing. And I love the toddler experience.
Yes.
And I think that works when you're 40 years old or 50 years old too. Like,
exactly.
You should be better and more mature every year that goes by.
Period. Yeah.
And
that's it.
even if you make a similar mistake again, it's not the end of the world.
No.
As long as you're alive, you can continue to grow and try again and get better as a person.
That's it. Period. And honor the journey. I'll just add that last piece.
Nice.
I'm very big on honoring the journey. Wherever you are, whatever mistakes, it's all a part of the journey. It's like I said, it's what you knew at that time with what you had. So honor it. It's a part, it led you to where you are. Now choose differently.
You're not who you are without every experience you went through. And I love who you are, Leeta. Again, we haven't been talking all the time over these last 25, 30 years, whatever, but that's the kind of person you are. I remember reaching out to you, I think for my 20th wedding anniversary, just kind of like out of the blue.
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad. I'm like, I ain't talking to Leeta in a minute, but at the same time I didn't, because even as a kid, again, at 15, you made me feel like I mattered. You probably didn't know you had that skill back then, but you made me feel like, when you're 15 and 18 or 19, that's a huge difference, especially when you're male and female. And you made me feel like whenever I was with you and Shelly, I mattered. My conversation mattered. And that's what you, I'm sure, do to all these other individuals who've met you along your journey. And I'm glad that you have used your journey to just make everyone else's life easier if they choose to follow it or just choose to be aware of it and get past the forward in the book. So please go past the forward in the book, people. I mean, Carlos is nice, but Leeta is the reason you bought it. So do this for me. Everyone I've had on this series is not as accomplished in terms of professionally with this specific topic. So would you please just now have it flash up on the screen on the video version of this podcast, but do you mind just giving me a few places where people can find not only your books, but just more about you in general?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I encourage everybody to go to my website, which is my name. So it's www.leetaharlem.com. So LILETTAHARLEM.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under My Natural Me Woman. And of course, you can also get my books on Amazon. So you can just plug in the titles. You can put my name in Amazon search or even the titles, which the first book is Celebrating a Legacy of Courage and Resolve. And the second book is I Can Fix Mine. And I have 2 books coming out December 1st. So those will be there too as well.
Okay. All right. So please, if you are listening and you want those, you pay for what you get. And if you don't want to pay for anything, you're not going to get any advice. So I encourage you to at least look them up, at least go to her website, find out more about Leeta. And she's been, again, lifelong friend since I was a kid. And no matter if we talk tomorrow or a year from now, it'll still be the same message, the kind of energy she brings. So Leeta, thank you for being in my atmosphere and part of this podcast In Your Atmosphere series that I'm doing. Again, it's only a few episodes and you definitely made that list because every single interaction since I was a kid, I walked away a better person. So thank you for being in my atmosphere and being in my life. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of In Your Atmosphere.